The month of October is coming to an end. And what a banger it was. It is time to look at the big market metrics. How many people played the game this month? How many cases were opened? And what changes occurred in this market during this month? We will discuss the recent changes to trade-ups and the market's reaction too. All of that and much more in this monthly. First of all, I need to give a big disclaimer. This month specifically, the case opening numbers seem to be inaccurate. In the last week, since Valve added the changes to knives, people opened 30 million cases according to the numbers, the same as the last entire month. This is due to the new trade-up update that Valve has introduced. That update increases the numbers since many people now have an extra reason to trade up pinks into the red variety. Because reds can now be traded up to the gold of the case. After this month, stuff should probably return back to normal as prices will probably have settled by then. But yes, this particular month right now will be an overestimation. But for once, this is actually not a bad thing. This means all of the growth this month came from the cases that people want to trade up to the knives of the most. So, for once we can objectively rank which knives were traded up to the most and thus which knives people want and need the most. You'll see what I mean. And with that out of the way, CS2 players opened 60.99 million cases in the last 30 days, up from 33.57 million in September. We saw a slight growth in the active player numbers and Valve gave us a crazy update. Knives and gloves can now be traded up to from 5 reds from any case. This was a huge shock to the entire market. Cases are still doing insane volume and that during a bit of a dip in prices across the board. There are some clear winners and a couple of losers. So let's break down what people opened, why it changed and how prices are changing in general. Case opening volume rose very starkly month over month. About 30 million more cases than in September. But like I said, take it with a huge, giant grain of salt. Cases are still getting opened at massive amounts, but this is of course an inflated value. You'll see by how much a little bit later. The game's player numbers are still doing great. In the 2 months before this one, they grew about 10%, and this month it is still growing another 1.3%. So the game is doing good player-wise overall. That is very important because without an active player base, what is there to base the market on really? Last month, the fracture case moved from the prime or active drop pool to the rare drop pool, and since that move happened, we have seen unboxing numbers go up with this month's numbers. But when taking into account the update, they are probably down to about 2.5 or 3 million from 3.2 last month. That is very good actually, considering how the price spikes and they aren't getting dropped anymore and they're still getting opened quite a lot. There is clearly still a lot of demand for the knives from this case. The other reason is probably that Fracture has good knives and the price is still cheap. People can still open Fracture and not break the bank. There are active cases like the Dreams and Nightmares that are more expensive. So clearly being actively dropping is not the most important here. Valve also removed the gallery case, the graphic collection and the character craft stickers from the armory. So they are now officially discontinued. But yeah, that case isn't doing much anyway. And finally, Valve made golds trade-uppable. And that is truly crazy. It will affect every facet of the market. It will definitely be interesting to see what the case opening numbers will do with that new change over the next little while. Will people be more interested in the case openings or less now? I will of course be here next month to tell you all about it. Now, showing you the top movers and standouts is a bit ridiculous this month. And I will do it, but it doesn't tell us much. And that's because every case went up. Actually, one of the very old cases stayed exactly the same, but apart from that, everything is up insane amounts. And that isn't crazy, because the total is also a little bit less than double what it was last time. So instead of telling you what these opening numbers look like in terms of the demand to truly open them, I will instead be looking at it a little differently, because there is virtually no reason the case numbers should be 2 times as high. That isn't due to prices, demand, or even supply, because comparing it to last month shows us that nothing is virtually different. Apart from the knives trade-up change, there isn't a big difference here. And this is the moment to tell you how they calculate the odds for these numbers, because that's why this mistake is happening. The numbers don't actually get calculated by people opening a case. It instead works a little bit differently. They look at how many new reds for a certain type get created and added to float.db. For example, all of the battle-scarred ones from one type of red, since there used to be no reason to really trade up to those reds. Because they aren't useful and they're not good in any way. They're not even expensive, or well, they used to be not expensive. It of course could happen on accident, but apart from that, that was just negligible. But now, those battle-scarred reds can be traded up to a knife, even though it's a battle-scarred knife, but still, or some gloves. And since the update is brand new, there is now a ton of random 14-year-olds trading their old red skins, especially battle-scarred or well-worn ones, up to a knife just for the fun of it. So over time, this will settle down as prices become stable at their new equilibrium and there becomes less of a reason to do it. But right now, for the first month, the supply and demand will have to be balanced out, which this is the only way to do that. To trade up a bunch of red type skins to the gold variety. So that means right now the numbers will be higher than normal. So when we now look at the numbers, we don't see demand for opening, but demand for trading up to the knives, or at least in the difference. And that's where we can really say something useful, because you can truly see some wild trends. Let me explain. These are the opening numbers for the cases from this month and for past months. In simple terms, you can just look at the colors. Those compare the percentages of all the changes in opening numbers for the past 4 months. That means green means big move upwards and red means down. Green means a lot more were opened comparing it to the month before, and red it means less. And you can see that this month everything is green compared to past months. That's because everything doubled. But it is especially interesting to look at the change in raw amounts, because some cases have more demand for the knives than others. Let's look at that. As you can see here, I've sorted the numbers for how many extra cases were opened comparing it to last month. And at the top, there are all of the cases with the highest demands for their golds. Here you will of course find the Dreams and Nightmares case. It's still getting opened huge amounts, the price is expensive, the knives are great. It has some of the best knives in the game. And also already enough reds available to be traded up. Next you'll also see the Revolution case, which contains arguably the best gloves in the game. Or at least it contains the vices. I don't know if you like them or not. Next you see the Recoil case, another case with gloves. Continuing down the list, there are a ton more cases with gloves that jump out of this list. Also the case with the highest percentage growth, the Hydra case, which went from about 6,000 opened last month, which was fairly stable, to a theoretical 36,000 this month. That means about 500% increase in openings. That is of course insane and not true, because this just happened because of the trading up to the gloves it contains. Because it contains these gloves. And people were trading up to these in massive amounts because they are very expensive. And the Hydra case had a lot of fairly cheap reds that could be used for that. I mean, you can look at the top of this list and see all of the most popular knives and gloves ever. Now my last insights are these. The Breakout case is very high. One of the only high ones of the really old cases. Along with the Phoenix case. And that brings me to another point. Look, these numbers depend not just on the price of the case, but really on the cheapest reds from that case. A case can be very expensive and the reds from it can be very cheap. It just depends on how cheap some of the reds are. And the Phoenix case is the perfect example here. People in the past who used to want to trade up to the reds from the Phoenix case were only hunting one skin, the Alp Asimov. It's very expensive, very rare, very float based and also, well, just very popular. And there's another red in that collection that isn't so popular, the AUG Chameleon. So that skin is incredibly cheap, because people just want the Alp Asimov, and if you don't get that, you'll just sell the other one. There's way too many of them, because in the way the system works, there will always be as many Alp Asimovs as AUG Chameleons. So the AUG Chameleon was dirt cheap. Or well, it was. Not anymore, of course. It used to be $15. Now it's above 80. Now a warning. Feel free to look at these numbers and pick out the best cases you can see. But don't get fooled. These numbers are in the millions, but that does not mean millions of new knives were created. Because this system is very different to trading up to knives. One red getting created means this number can go up hundreds or even thousands. Because one red is calculated and used to count everything. So for every Battlescarred red you open, you also open a field tested one, a mil spec one, a minimal wear one and a factory new one. And you also open a ton of pinks, an absolute shit ton of purples and a boatload of blues. All of those cases getting opened are counted into that one red appearing on the database. We are not counting every skin, we're just counting the reds and extrapolating from there. So these numbers being in the millions means not that millions of new knives were created, but rather a lot less. So for example, 100 new reds can do a lot. And that is just 20 random knives in total. So I think this actually shows how little this will change for knives really. People were scared and the prices dropped massively because they were hurt in some way. But there are not massive amounts of overstock for case skins and there were already too few of those to begin with. And the same goes for knives even more so. In fact, I think that the knives that were created by trade-ups are negligible. They will already be taken up by someone because there's a lot of people who would love to get a knife. So the prices will probably go back up. But supply for knives? Well, that won't. Now onto the other big change. Because I know the knives are popular, but Valve also gave us the Genesis Uplink Terminal. And last month I started tracking the opening numbers for that thing. And I of course have an update for you. And it's actually better than I expected. In total there are about 1 million of the new Uplink terminals out right now. Now you must understand one thing. These numbers are actually terrible. Yeah, I kinda baited you there. They seem good comparing it to last time. But they aren't. And that is because these items are actually getting actively dropped too. Everyone who plays a game of CS in a week is getting these items. Assuming that this collection is getting dropped about as much as the other ones, then 1 million is terribly low. So no, people don't care about the Uplink terminal. And for Valve, that makes their decision more difficult because they want to move towards a world where Uplink terminals are the only actively dropping item. But if that means millions of cases not getting opened, they might delay that change for a while. Or they might compensate that with more cases in the armory. They'll have to do something because who knows? Cases in the armory do incredibly well after all. Anyway. There are some other cases that are quite interesting, but there's basically only one that I want to talk about right now. And that's the case that grew 15% in the time that every other case in the game, apart from the Hydra case, don't tell anyone, went down in price. Every case went down in price, which never happens. But with this recent crash, it did. Now everything is recovering. But as of right now, the past 30 days, every case is down, which is just insane. Apart from one, again. Can you guess which? Of course, it's the Breakout case. It was there all along. Before the CS2 market cap, people used the Breakout case as the market cap. Because the Breakout case is Counter-Strike investing, and it is the CSGO market. So whenever people feel bullish about the market, they buy the Breakout case. So I think that the Breakout case going up in price is probably a good sign. All of the people who don't know anything about CS will just invest in the Breakout case and hope it works out. Because we had a huge dip. So that's the best time to buy. CSGO has been going crazy. So right now is the best time to buy it, right? Well, because of everyone doing it? No, not right now. Not for the Breakout case. Other items, yes. Breakout case, no. So look at the price for the Breakout case and don't buy it. Not right now. But it is going crazy. 15% over a month. That literally killed half of the CSGO market value. That's pretty good. And we have to give it a shout out for that. If there's another case that I didn't mention that you are interested in, here are the numbers for all the cases. But like I said, don't take away too much from these numbers. Since the huge market-wide dip that happened with the knives trade-up changes, most things have recovered. Case prices are largely back up to where they were before the crash, which is a very good sign. Demand for cases hasn't died down, and as we can now see with proof, this was just a scare type of FOMO, but the other way around of course. I have no doubt that this market will be fine long term. People love spreading fear and scare, but that is just not right. It might get clicks, but it sure as hell isn't the truth. For example, I saw videos about a second crash everywhere. People said that the crash would be even worse when the knives would become tradable. Well, they're tradable now, and there is no crash to speak of. So don't get bogged down in all of the scary stuff people say, and always stay critical of what is the truth. This goes for me just the same. Sometimes even I might say something that is a bit controversial. So keep thinking yourself before you decide to do something out of a gut feeling. Don't let your emotions influence your decisions in this market. Be factual and reasoning. That makes a big difference. Number 1. Knife prices. I am personally of the opinion that this crash was a huge overreaction, so I suspect that prices will creep back upwards over the next few months naturally. Many people would love a knife, and this update does not introduce huge amounts of new supply. It just fucks with people's feelings. Like I said in this video, this change is fairly small, comparing it to the 3 billion that was deleted overnight. Personally, I am also watching the reds from the cases. They are very interesting to watch as well, especially if the prices of knives or gloves move over the next couple of months. I am also watching what Valve will do next when we are talking about cases and uplink terminals. All of that is very interesting. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Now all of this fear-mongering and talking about this update being the end of skins is just nonsense. And it's bad for how you think about everything too. You should stay objective. So you as a viewer should watch out for videos like that. But I would get it if you click on one every once in a while. I mean, I do too. It makes you think. So here's my solution. If you want to make sure you're still grounded and you know what is happening and why it is happening, this is what you should watch. It's a 20-minute video that stays with the facts, doesn't become too negative and stays realistic too. It'll do you well, trust me. And you're still watching. I never ask anyone to subscribe at the beginning of a video, but after 20 minutes, you know what to do. And with that, I'll see you guys later. If you're still watching, you are truly awesome. Thank you and goodbye.